Hello YouTube fams, you're welcome back to another tutorial today. Okay, so as you have seen on the thumbnail of this video, we are going to be making a cupped corset. Yes, a cupped corset using our pattern for this. Alright, so the first thing you do is to mark out your length measurement, that is the length of the top that you are making. The next thing you do now is to mark out your shoulder line. So that line that you have at the top is your shoulder line. And on that shoulder line, you take your shoulder measurement, shoulder divided by, you take your round, like your back measurement divided by 2, whatever you have there. So on that, I have my 8 inches. And then on the 8 inches, you come down by 1 inch. That is going to be your shoulder slope mark. 1 inch. So I'm marking for both the back and the front pattern together. So this box, I have in this box my hip measurement. I have it on equal sides, both for the front and for the back. Okay, next you mark your neck measurement, your neck width and your neck depth. So I have 3 inches by 3 inches. For the back, I'm going to be having 3 inches by 1 inch, 1 inch, or at most you use 1.5. So here I used 1.5. So you connect the lines together with your curved ruler, your armhole curved or your French curve, any curved ruler that you have. And if you are good with your freehand, you can also use your freehand to connect the dot together. That is your neck width and your neck depth. So you do this for both the front and the back piece. So like I said, I'm drafting the pattern for both the front and the back together. So this box contains my hip measurement and I found the midpoint of that hip measurement. So there you have it. All right, next, after getting the neck depth, you move on to your shoulder slope. You remember the 1 inch that we marked and we came down on our shoulder line. You're going to connect it to your neck area. That is the point where you have your neck width. So you connect it to your shoulder slope. So this is my neck for the front, and then I'm going to connect the shoulder together with the neck like that, with a slant line is going to come down by 1 inch. All right, so there you have it. Now this is going to form a base for your armhole line. The armhole line is right underneath there, like that is where your armhole line is going to be. All right, so the next thing I went on to do is to mark out my armhole. So you take your armhole measurement round and you divide it by 2. Whatever you have is what you mark out. So here I have my 8 inches. That is for this particular design that I'm making, 8 inches right on that shoulder line. Do not forget, don't let your hand shake to move away from the shoulder line. You mark it there. You come down by the amount of inches that you have for your armhole. So I decided to mark it on the chest area because I wanted it to, align such that I'm not mistaken in my measurement. So you can just join it with your ruler to make sure that your hand is straight. I marked it right there. From the top, you're going to be marking 9 inches. If you come down, it's going to be, don't forget our 1 inch that we are coming down with on the shoulder line. And there you have your armhole. So that is going to be your chest line, and on that chest line you have your armhole resting. So you extend that line carefully. So I marked this with a pencil because it's going to just be a semi line. I'm not really going to be working on it. The lines I'm working on, I marked in a dark marker. All right, so I already drafted my armhole line. You're going to continue and do likewise for the back. You can see that I measured and the lines are accurate. The lines, that is the space between the shoulder line and the midpoint line, is the same as the one I have on the base of my armhole measurement. You connect these lines together and then you mark it out as your armhole line. All right, the next thing you do now is to mark the midpoint of your armhole, and that is what we have here. On the front, I used 1 inch, and at the back, I used half an inch. I'm just indicating that as the point where I'm going to be curving my ruler. Yes, you can see the way I placed it. You place it carefully at the top and at the bottom of the armhole line. If you are a beginner, please pay attention to this part. So you ensure that they connect together before you draw your lines. So you can see the way I did for the back. The front is coming in by 1 inch, but for the back, I used half inch. You can see what I did. Yes, that is what you're doing there. Look at it. There's a difference between the back armhole and the front armhole. All right, the next thing we are going to mark now is our length measurement. So I marked the inner length now, not the top length. So I marked my under bust measurement, my bust point measurement, my natural curve or high waist measurement. I have a video on how to take this measurement. That's like the first video on my channel. You can just scroll down, or I will attach the link to that video on this description of this video. So all right, so you mark it all through, all around the box that you have your length measurement, that is the shoulder to bust point, shoulder to under bust, shoulder to natural curve or high waist, and the last measurement you have, it's already there, and that is the top measurement. You can also have your shoulder to navel, it's just for waist snatching, which I actually did in this video for this corset pattern. So waist snatching is also part of what you get to learn on this video. Okay, after marking, I indicated it on a straight line to just be able to identify where each point is going to be for me when I'm taking my measurement. You can see the bust point, that's the BP, under bust, and then UB, then you have the waist or the natural curve. There you have it there. Now for the back, I'm not going to be using the under bust measurement. I do not need to highlight the under bust for the back, so it's just the waist measurement and the top length that I need for the back. Now you go on and take your darts. Yes, that's the first thing you take. Now we are already starting the corset procedure. You take your dart, that is your bust pan, from your nipple to your nipple, that's your bust pan. Whatever you have there, you divide by 2. So here I have 3.5, and that is what I measured all through, from the bust point through to the length of your top. You measure your bust pan measurement. So the next thing I did, now I marked my high bust, which is your distance between my bust point to my under bust. You can see that. So I have 3 inches as my bust point to my under bust space. Then I replicated that 3 inches on my eye bust to my bust point. You can see that 3 inches above and 3 inches below. Next, I went on to mark the difference. That 3 inches, I marked it all round. In case you do not have a compass, you can just use your ruler or your measuring tape like I did. But if you have a compass, just go on and measure it all round. Now look at that. On the center front, I marked half an inch. Half inch, that's the mark that you have there. At the center front of your pattern, for the front pattern, you mark your half inch. That's going to be your midpoint for your corset. It shouldn't be more than half an inch. If it is too wide, you're going to miss the calculation. So I marked my half inch. Then I went on to mark my dart, which is half inch on each side. I marked my dart. All right, so at the base, I marked 1 inch. That is the length, that is for my dart. 1 inch at each base. That is what I marked, and I connected it to my bust point measurement. That center, the bust pan that I have, that point that you have there, and then I connected it to the bust point like that. Now the next thing I'm going to be doing now is to mark out my curved lines. So I'm going to be marking out the curve that I already drew with my marker. Like I said earlier, if you have a compass, this will be much more easier. So I do not have a compass, and that's why I'm using my freehand. So now technically, like you're going to be marking, don't forget that our mark half inch that we have from the center front, so you mark it all the way right at 3 inches. It should not exceed 3 inches, so that it won't fall into the wrong place. So you try to get the round edges together. At some point I went on to use my free hand, because sometimes the compass is just the best. It's just the best for you to get this circle. So if you cannot get the circle, use your hand. just make sure that you're connecting the lines that you already drafted together. All right, so that was what I did. And then you're going to be extending this curve all the way through to the high bust, to your high bust. You can see what I marked there. At the point that center front of my high bust as well, I marked my half inch, and then I connected it all the way to the armhole line. Did you see that? I connected it all the way to the armhole line. For all the others, you might not, you might want to just go on depending on the design you're making. So but this is just the safest and the surest way to get this. So you just know that you're going to be cutting out this part of your pattern, and that is what you're going to be replacing either with a ready-made cup, or you're going to be using this paper pattern as well to create another cup like the one you are creating for you, for yourself, using this paper. Whichever ever one you decide to do, it's okay as long as you get the right measurement. There is nothing wrong in experimenting and doing something new. All right, so I went on to mark this line, joined it to my armhole line, and then you have the U shape, which is an indicator of your corset, cupped corset part. The next thing, I went on to take my round measurement, reducing the measurement by 1 inch. So now this client has a 28-inch, right? You can see that 28 inches waistline. I reduced it to give me 25 inches. Yes, 25, I think. All right, so I marked it all the way through. That's one effect of waist snatching corsetry. So it's just good. Like, I reduced it by 3 inches. Yes, I reduced the waist by 3 inches. You will see it at the end of this video. You see the way it turned out on my client. Now I went on to mark it. Don't forget, the dark line that you are removing, you are replacing by the side, and don't forget you are adding seam allowance. In this video, I did not add my seam allowance on this pattern. I only drafted using the accurate measurement. So you go ahead and do the same. Your measurement, round measurement, divided by 4. Divided by 4, which means at this point you're going to be placing the center of this corset on fold, whereas you're going to be cutting 2 pieces for each of the sides. The center is cut on fold and the sides are cut 2 pieces. You cut 2 for each piece. Don't forget, at some point I usually write it on my pattern in order not to have that mistake. It can actually be technical. When you're cutting and you're drafting pattern, it is good to label and put in to the last detailed information. It's going to help you out by the time you start cutting your fabric. All right, so I went on and did the same with this pattern. So I carved out the shape at the side. I was trying to get the best angle for this, and then I just rounded up the sides so that it won't just be sharp and pointy. Yes, there is no one with a pointy waistline, so you just give the bent human feeling to your pattern, and it's just good. See, with this we are actually partially done with the corset pattern drafting. We are done technically with the front. The next thing you have to do now is to move to the back. Now the back is the simplest. This is going to be having lacing at the back, so I'm going to be marking out the points where the lace will be eliminated on this as well. Okay, the next thing I went on to do is to mark out my shoulder to my bust point. I'm not actually marking the bust, but I'm just trying to mark the chest round measurement. So I marked out that line for me to be able to identify that on the pattern. All right, and then the next thing I did was to mark the round chest measurement. So whatever you have as your bust measurement, round divided by 4. Don't forget you are dividing all round measurements by 4. So I marked it out. You can see the way the center back is where I wrote the CB. Look at it there. And then the side is the middle line. So I marked my round measurement for my bust point and my waist. Don't forget, we do not have an underbust. There is no bust at the back, so I'm not using the underbust measurement for the back. Then I marked my navel measurement because I'm snatching the waist as well. So I also marked my hip measurement. I tried cross-checking to be sure that the measurements are accurate. All right, so I marked the hip measurement, the waist or the navel measurement. Then I marked the high waist as well, so, or the natural curve line. Then I connected these lines together. I connected them together with my ruler to give me the, the curved shape that you have when you have a feminine shape. That's just good. Don't forget, I did not add any seam allowance to this pattern. So which means by the time I'm cutting out the pattern, I'm going to be adding my seam allowance. By the time I'm cutting it out on the fabric, I will be adding my seam allowance. All right, so with that, I drafted the sides for the back, and then I marked out my yoke. This is going to be having a yoke. The front is also having a yoke. So I marked out the yoke for the back and the yoke for the front. You can see the high bust point is where my yoke for the front is going to stop. Okay, so right now I'm going to be marking out the part I'm going to be cutting away for the back. Now I marked 4 inches on my chest area. That slope that I marked for the yoke, I marked 4 inches on it, and then I went down to the base of this top, that is my top length, and I marked 2 inches, 4 inches at the top and 2 inches below, and I connected them together. I connected the 2 inches with the 4 inches, and that forms my V part, the V part for the back, that opened part where I'm going to be putting my lacing. I cut it off. So this is going to be going away. Meanwhile, I'm going to be replacing it with another fabric, which is going to cover the back, as the client requested that she wants her back to be covered. So you just cover it with a piece of fabric. So I went on to do the same for the top, that is the yoke part, because it's going to be like a V neck at the back, like a V neck, and the yoke is melting. The V from the yoke is melting into the bodice, like the shape of the back. Now I'm just practically done with the back corset. So you can see corsetry is very, very simple. Sometimes I get a lot of DMs from people telling me, oh, I can't make a corset. I find it difficult to get a corset. Corset making is very, very simple, especially the curved corset. In my next video, I'm going to be explaining the Victorian corset, so look out for that. And with that, we are done with this pattern drafting for the corset. You can see that we are done, practically done. Very, very simple and easy. I know you must have seen other videos on the different techniques, but I promise you this is just one of the easiest method in drafting the curved corset. Now this part that I marked off, that is that line, these ones, we are going to be cutting them away. We are going to be cutting them all away. You can see the way I indicated it at the back as well. Now these are my pieces. These are the pieces that I already cut out. Don't forget the center part I'm going to be cutting on fold, and the sides I'm cutting double, that is cutting on 2. And here I went on to cut my pattern. Yes, very, very, one of the parts that I love is this. After the pattern has been drafted, I love to just go to work and start cutting it out. Look at the way I placed it, because I'm going to be adding allowance. Don't forget, I told you I did not add any allowance to my pattern, either hemming allowance or sewing allowance by the sides. I did not add any. So I just went on to mark out my 0.5 inches all the way through round the edges of the pattern. Look at where I did that, 0.5 inches, making sure that it aligns well with my pattern. I went on to draft it for the sides, all the sides, because I've already added allowance at the edge. So I'm just going on with the 0.5 inches all through the side. So you two go ahead and do that now. And here I went on to cut the part for the yoke, the skin net, the mesh that I'm using for the upper part of the yoke for the front and for the back. You can see the way I'm doubling it for it to have this strength and stamina. So just to have the firm effect. Now don't forget, while I was doing this, I indicated the sides because this can actually be confusing. Next thing, I took it to my sewing machine and joined each piece together, ensuring that it brings out the idea that I have in mind while I was creating this beautiful work of art. And trust me, guys, it came out nice. It came out so beautiful. My client was satisfied. She really loved it. Oh, now, look at this beautiful work of art. I have a video on how to cover a cupped corset. I'm going to be linking that video in my description, or you can scroll through this my channel to see that video. Look at the way it is perfectly fitting. This is just so beautiful. Look at it now. I this was before I already did the cup and everything before she came for fitting, and it was just one fitting. Everything was perfect. Oh yeah, now look at her now. Why have you not subscribed to my channel? Come on, subscribe and let's learn from each other. Okay, guys, thank you for staying tuned. Come on, share this video, like. Bye.